Damon burst onto the Hollywood scene in 1997 when he and Ben Affleck co-wrote and starred in the coming-of-age drama Good Will Hunting. They won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, and since then, Damon has had an enviable career. The Bourne series gave him that desirable big-money franchise, but he's also thrown himself into less conventional roles, like in Anthony Minghella's The Talented Mr. Ripley or Terry Gilliam's The Brothers Grimm. He did a turn as Tina Fey's boyfriend, a pilot named Carol, in 30 Rock, and he's achieved immortality with his video with Sarah Silverman, I'm Matt Damon.
I'm Matt Damon.
She's Matt Damon.
I'm sorry, but I'm Matt Damon.
She's Matt Damon.
I'm not imagining it's you. I'm Matt Damon.
On the bed, on the floor, on a towel by the door, in the tub, in the car, up against the minibar.
I'm Matt Damon.
Matt Damon's latest movie is We Bought a Zoo, based on a memoir by Benjamin Mee. Damon stars as a grieving widower with 2 kids who decides to buy and resurrect a dilapidated zoo to rebuild his own life.
It's a zoo.
Well, yeah. Look, these animals need somebody to rescue them.
The animals need to be Dad, my friends are here. Our life is here.
Man, you got expelled. All right? What am I going to do? What am I supposed to... What am I going to homeschool you?
No.
Right. So what did we talk about? A new place. A new start.
This is what you want. It's not what I want.
What?
It's a zoo. I'm moving to a zoo. We bought a zoo.
Yes, we did. We did buy a zoo. Give me some fork.
We Bought a Zoo opens on December 23rd, aimed straight at audiences looking for family films over the holidays. It marks Cameron Crowe's return to the director's chair 4 years after his last film, Elizabethtown, failed at the box office and was lambasted by critics. To lure Damon to We Bought a Zoo, Crowe visited the actor in Austin, Texas, where he was filming True Grit with the Coen brothers. Crowe brought with him his whole bag of tricks, including a copy of the 1983 film Local Hero, in which an American oil exec is sent to buy a small town in Scotland. There was also a CD full of music. We'll post a list of those songs on our website. And, of course, there was the script.
It was actually a really smart thing on his part, because the biggest decision that you make as an actor is whether or not to say yes. And once you've done that, really... You're done, and you're kind of all in on the movie at that point. And you know, whether your decision was correct or not, you're going to work unbelievably hard for 6 straight months on this thing. And I've been on those ones where I go, oops, you know, a month into it, and that's a horrible feeling because you still do the work, and you never ever give up on it until it comes out. And so what Cameron was basically doing was giving me more information to help me make the decision, because he said, look, don't just read the script. I have this whole hour and a half of music that I've compiled, and I want you to listen to that. And I also he gave me the film Local Hero and said, watch this as well. And Local Hero is just a little masterpiece. It's just such a wonderful, wonderful movie. And he said, this is the feeling I want you to have. So once you've kind of digested these 3 things, he said, that's the feeling that I want the audience to have when they come out of this movie. And nobody had ever done it that way with me. You know, I've had directors give me, you know, storyboards or even graphic novels that they put together. And those things really help too, these kind of visual aids to kind of get a sense of what the movie's gonna look like. But nobody had ever said this is what the movie's gonna feel like. And it really helped. I mean, before I even read the script, I went for a run in Central Park, and I'd put it on my iPod, and I just listened to the music, and I finished the run, and I went, well, that made me feel good. You know, let me go watch Local Hero and see, you know, and it just, by the end of that kind of deliberation process, I really did have a feel of what he wanted. You know, plus I was also betting on Cameron Crowe, which is a very, very good bet. He's got obviously a great body of work, and so I was very familiar with that as well.
Although, you know, he did come off of Elizabethtown and had a 4-year break. So I think you said you were thinking about Jerry Maguire more than Elizabethtown.
Yeah, and Almost Famous and Say Anything. And, you know, The more I do this, it's really, you can't make a great movie by accident. You know, it just does not happen. There are just too many decisions that a director has to make over too long a period of time. So when somebody's made a great movie, I would bet on that person. When someone's made more than one great movie, you know, then they're a great director, and they absolutely deserve your trust. It's basically a trust fall when you say yes. You're just basically giving yourself away to that person and going, all right, I'm riding with you.
This issue of becoming a movie star, I wanted to ask you about it because you broke in with Good Will Hunting and things moved really quickly. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, what that was like and when you really realized I'm becoming a movie star. This is like my life is transformed forever.
Yeah, well, it was right after Good Will Hunting and all of that. And it was really, I was really wrong-footed by it. I think Ben was too. It took a long time to feel like I kind of got my legs underneath me again. And I just dealt with it by working. But I think the experience of getting suddenly chased by photographers and all the things that I don't deal with at all now that were a part of that beginning, I just remember feeling like a lot of it I just wasn't okay with. It just didn't feel like I was living a life, really.
How do you not deal with the photographers coming at you now? I mean,
they just don't. When you're a curiosity, I think when there's potential sex or scandal, that's really what sells those magazines. And,
absolutely.
And if there's not that about you, I mean, my life now is so normal that it's not really worth their money. They go after the picture that's going to make them money. I mean,
so you have to get really boring.
Yeah.
Vanilla.
Well, I mean, but if you look at Brad and Angie, they're not doing anything to encourage it, and yet what these magazines do is they just make up new stories about Brad and Angelina and Aniston, and that marriage ended 6, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, but they just try to keep it going, so those pictures still are worth something. But in my case, there's just I really lucked out. I mean, I fell in love with a woman who's not in the business, and that right there, I mean, when you have two actors who are kind of in the spotlight, that really increases things.
I would think so.
And
one of the issues that I would think is a huge one when you're going through that transition is not just the photographers coming at you, but all sorts of people whose agendas seem to be, questionable or maybe only too obvious, taking advantage, wanting to in with you.
You do get kind of fooled into going like, maybe I'm this interesting that everyone wants to talk to me right now. But it was more about going through. It just was too much to process in a weird way. So it was so surreal that I think it actually took me a long time to just kind of work through it at kind of a subconscious level. I mean, the weird thing about that happening is that, like, suddenly people turn and look at you and stop, and it's a very odd feeling. But in a deep and important ways, the world is exactly the same, right? It's just totally changed in its relationship to you. So, and that just takes a long time to process, I think.
If you're just joining us, I'm Kim Masters, and this is The Business. We're talking with Matt Damon. His latest movie is the Cameron Crowe directed We Bought a Zoo. You must have been shocked in the era. I remember talking to Patrick Weitzel, your agent, about the Us magazine of it all and how stars can't have the mystique they used to have. And your heterosexual life partner, Ben Affleck, certainly proved that, right? For a time, he was really in the eye of the hurricane. He sold more magazines. Maybe he's competitive with Brad and Angie.
Yeah, that was horrible. And during that time, talking to him, he was very kind of sober about what it meant for his career. He knew that it meant he was just going into the penalty box for an undetermined amount of time.
Painful.
Yeah, horrible. He's like, the worst place you can be is where you're selling magazines and not movie tickets. That's, purgatory. It's really tough to get out of that. And that's, the good news is that what it took for him to get out of there was what it took for us to kind of get our careers going in the first place, which we had to write our way into the game, and he had to do it again. But with Gone Baby Gone, he wrote that, and it's beautiful, and directed it. He did Gone Baby Gone, and that still didn't kind of break him out of jail. And so, He did Hollywoodland, a movie. He was terrific in that, like a supporting performance, and he still couldn't get out, and so he finally did The Town, and he wrote that, directed it, and starred in it, just because it was the best job he could get.
Right.
The best acting job he could get, and he was great, and the movie was great, and now it looks like he's back on the list.
You do these. Well, you played yourself on Entourage as a total jerk, which doesn't seem to be consistent with your personality in real life. And you like to do these kind of oddball, the famous video, Sarah Silverman. But what is that? You got a little devil inside that likes to do crazy things like that?
No, I just never. Just early on, I just had the thought, like, well, you can't control an image anymore. Like, it's not, they're not the 1950s. And to try to spend your energy micromanaging an image, I think is just kind of crazy. So why not just have fun with it instead? And so that's what I did. And it's, I think, relieved the kind of a great amount of stress of, like, not worrying what everyone's saying or thinking or,
Well, it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, again, I benefit from kind of partnering up with really talented people. And Sarah Silverman is just tremendous. And the Jimmy Kimmel stuff I've done, and 30 Rock with Tina Fey, I mean, she's just amazing. And
you volunteered for that, right?
I did, yeah. I saw her at a SAG Awards, and my wife and I loved that show, and it was the one thing we were TiVoing. I was shooting something, and it was like our one little treat. Like, I'd come home and we'd get the kids down and we'd watch 30 Rock. And so when we saw her at this thing, we kind of got starstruck, and I just went up and I said, listen, I just think you're great. And I mean, I'd met her from doing Saturday Night Live like 10 years ago, but I didn't really know her. But just said, if there's ever anything, I mean, I'd love to do a walk-on or something on your show. And
walk-on?
Well, something, like a little guest spot.
Right.
And then she called with this 4-episode arc. She goes, this is probably too much, but, if you want to do it. So she sent it over, and I just thought it was great. And I live in New York, so it was easy for me to do, because I was doing True Grit at the time, so I was working only sporadically because it was a supporting role. So I was kind of commuting between Texas and New York, so they just scheduled it while I was in New York.
Coming up after a short break, Matt Damon is ready to direct, and he reflects on his recent controversial comments about Bourne Identity screenwriter Tony Gilroy. You're listening to The Business from KCRW and KCRW.com.
Hi, this is Darby Maloney, producer of The Business. Catch up with The Business and lots of film and television news on our Facebook page. Search for KCRW's The Business and click like.
This is The Business, and I'm Kim Masters. With his new movie, We Bought a Zoo, coming out later this week, Matt Damon is gracing the cover of GQ magazine. What's made news in that article were some disparaging remarks that Damon made about Tony Gilroy, who's been a screenwriter on all the Jason Bourne movies and is currently directing the 4th installment in the series. That film does not include a role for Damon, though it leaves the door open for Jason Bourne to return if there's a 5th film. Damon vented in GQ that he felt Gilroy had been overpaid on the 3rd Bourne movie for delivering a weak, lazy script, leaving director Paul Greengrass to clean up the mess. In fairness to Gilroy, executives involved with the film say he'd made it clear from the start that he was committed to write one draft only and then move on to a directing commitment. Even before the GQ article went to press, Damon had already expressed remorse for bashing Gilroy. Nonetheless, his comments were printed, and it quickly became clear that Gilroy and his allies were profoundly offended. When I spoke with Damon, who was at his home in New York, he was still processing the whole episode.
Well, again, I mean, it should really just stay between me and Tony, and that's why it was idiotic of me to say anything. I think I just got like, I don't know. I think I just opened my mouth when I shouldn't have, because it doesn't matter ultimately. And I really am rooting for this Bourne one, this one that he's doing. And I think and I know it's going to be great. I mean, he's unbelievably talented, and he's, as a writer and director, and he knows that world. I'm sure he's going to do a great job with it.